overhead projector. It's right at the corner of Prince Rupert Boulevard and Galt Crescent. The applicant proposes to essentially, I'll go to the last slide, to cover the existing deck, to add additional living space, which would bring it to 2.1 meter from the property line. The deck can be within this encroachment, but the building attached to, or the new addition attached to the building has to abide by the side yard regulations of 3.6 meters, and essentially the variance is 2 to 2.1 meters. And this is the balcony. It is facing frontwise, but essentially it will be covered. Notifications were mailed and delivered to the neighboring owners and occupants within a radius of 150 feet. Based on a conversation at the last meeting and prior to council developing a policy with respect to the proper radius, we have used 150 feet as it encompasses more than what we usually identify by visual observation. As at the time of this report, as I note in my report, there were no comments or inquiries. That's an error. I omitted to include an inquiry from the school board, which was distributed to you earlier today. And it inquires about possibly affecting, reducing visibility for motorists to see pedestrian at the crosswalk. The crosswalk. The crosswalk is located here, and this existing structures which will be covered will in no way affect the crosswalk visibility, nor the traffic flow at this intersection. The second letter came from Mr. Abel Rocha. And essentially there were two of them. The second one, which arrived today, has additional signatories. There are 3 points in the letter. The first one is about the effect on the intersection. I've just reviewed that part technically. The second point is about building quality of the structure, and if it will be up to building code and building standards. The applicant will be required to take out building permits, and we have able building inspectors who will assure that BC building code is adhered to. And the third point is really the epitome as to why we do these notifications to the neighboring properties, and it notes that this will affect the way I've enjoyed my property, and it will obstruct my views. That is my report, Your Worship, Mr. Mayor, and it changes my conclusion that there was a note that substantially brings it to your attention prior to considering the approval. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Councilor Nish?
Now,
is the setback an issue because it's a corner lot? Because I know most of the time, like a side yard setback is only 4 feet. So I'm just curious: is it because it's a corner lot that they have to have the 12 feet on the side and on the front?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, a couple of questions. Prince Rupert Boulevard at that area is a school zone, 30 kilometers?
Yes.
And in this picture here, there's shrubbery right on the corner. Is that correct?
This here? Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah.
And so there's no concern about the shrubbery blocking and making that a blind corner?
So if you were traveling on the Prince Rupert Boulevard to make a right-hand turn, you cannot make this turn at a greater speed than, I would say, 10 to 15 kilometers, even if that.
And that's a stop sign right there at the bottom of Gull anyway, isn't it?
There's a stop sign right here. So if you were traveling and turning right, the shrubbery here will not obstruct your view. There are two ornamental trees there. This picture may give you impression that there is extravagant shrubbery, but there are essentially two ornamental trees. I would say cedar, approximately 6 to 8 feet high.
Okay, now the other question I have here is the deck. He is just filling in the bottom of it and not affecting the top in any way?
No, so he would. That's exactly the application is to enclose this area here. So this area down here, it's already the bottom floor. The first floor is already enclosed. The application is to enclose the top half.
Just drove by that today, and right now at the front of that deck is new construction.
And that this covered area here is something that the building inspector is dealing right now, but this is not part of the application.
So then what we're dealing with now is construction on the top of it.
Yes.
Other questions?
So there's going to be no further. There's not going to be anything, because I don't take lightly the last bullet on here, which says I think the new addition will affect the ways I enjoy my property. It would obstruct the view I have and would make my property feel enclosed. So we're just talking about closing in that top portion of the house.
Yes.
So if we look at the picture, the picture that's of all of the houses lined up in the street. Okay. How much further out on this picture would it be sticking than the house beside it?
That's what I tried to illustrate in this slide here. So what is in a dashed lines is actually picture of the deck from the top. So this picture shows this part in here, and it looks like it has a green carpet and some patio furniture. So this is how the deck exists now. The proposal, this is the picture of the deck from the front. And this area from here to here would be under the roof and filled in.
And sorry, Zeno. And the house beside it, where does it come out? How far does it extend onto Gull?
This house, well, these two houses are essentially lined up, and this is, I believe, Mr. Rocha's house, and so this. Again, with aerial photographs on this picture, you can see that the car and I would suggest that they are probably within the same context of the distance from the property line to the front wall of the house. Now, what we see up here, Councillor Torkelson, is we see the house, but we don't see the addition. And so addition from the next picture would be then covering like this.
So if we look at all of the the houses on Gull, they are mostly, it's hard to see the third one in. Oh yeah, on that one's clearer than my picture. So they're all further back, then they're all in a line basically.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to answer you. There appears to be some staggering in the houses. This house appears to be a little bit more than 3.6 meters. This house here, these two houses seem to be slightly back, and this one is in the front. The aerial photographs are a good way to get a context and to get the details that we are looking at. We would require legal drawings, which I wasn't prepared to bring, which I wasn't prepared with to bring to the council meeting.
So this little new addition he's put on front of that we just saw today, is he planning on including that as part of, because he's extended, like you've got your deck there, and on the right of the deck is another little structure. Now go back to that one there. See that little plastic covered thing now? That's all wooded in and it's got a door on it. Is he going to include that as part of the new extension?
I'm not sure. I'm exactly not sure. I would say within the context of the conversation that we are having about obstructing the views, I would suggest that, you know, this location here would be. Does anybody have motion sickness? So the partially constructed and plastic in enclosure that's in the front is located here. I think we're observing how will this addition affect the properties that are here. And so this here, once we change the setback, we change the setback for the entire length of that property. We don't change it just for that specific location. So in the development variance permit, we say that the side yard is varied from 3.2 to 1.6 meters. We don't specify that it's only for this one location of the building. So essentially, this part here, I could not tell you. I don't have enough information to tell you if that is going to be part and parcel of the improvements.
Well, you know, that's sort of crucial, because if he puts a little extension on the front of his deck and then he decides to fill in the top of the deck, he's gaining another 6 feet on this extension. It's kind of relevant to the decision we're going to make tonight. Like he's adding considerable more footage to the project if he goes another 6 feet straight out.
He cannot go over the maximum coverage of the property. So that's something that at the time of the building permit is going to be decided, the extent of the extension. This is the extent of the house. This is the extent of the addition to one side. I could not tell you on this side.
So the house on the left right now is Mr. Roche's.
Yes.
You can see sort of a roof line there, I believe.
Yes.
And it is set back to the wall of that house right now.
I think the picture is somewhat misleading. Yes, it is. They're close, and this is probably a better way of viewing the separation between the two buildings right here. So that being the side yard, it has a minimum 1.2 meters on both sides.
I'd just like to know exactly how far he's going with this addition. If he's put this small addition on the front of that deck, and now he's planning on putting the top of the deck and going right out to the other, that changes the dynamics quite a bit. And it also might change the square footage of the addition to the point where it's overbuilt for the lot. Those are things I'd like to know before I make a decision.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
So, now a question from you from a planning perspective. Now, when I build stuff, I know the rules: 12-foot front, 4 sides, 10 in the back, 10 feet in the back. So now, in this, because of the question I asked you earlier about having the 12-foot setback on both sides of the corner, front and side, now, do you feel that that is a very key thing to corner lots, like when developing neighborhoods? I mean, is it pretty standard to have that 12-foot on both sides?
It is, and we also have additional words in the zoning bylaw to say that you cannot visually obstruct the corners, and you cannot build a fence here that's over 4 feet. Things of that nature to assure that the visual corridor is clear for the pedestrians and for the vehicles.
Any other comments?
I move that we postpone this till the next meeting after we come up with that we know exactly what the intent is of this, whether it's the intent is to do the whole front or just where the garage is.
Okay, moved and seconded. Okay, any other discussion? That's the motion, yeah. Okay, moved by Councilor Thorkelson, second by Councilor Cunningham. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, item 6B, report from, can we grab Mr. Ranhawa as well, please? Okay, 937 Ambrose Avenue, application for development variance permit. We'll just wait for Mr. Ranhawa first. Okay.
The next development variance permit is for the property located at 937 Ambrose Avenue. Attachment 2 has the context map. The development received the application on August 31st, and the application is actually quite well prepared and explains thoroughly what the applicant is asking for. Essentially, this is one of the older houses that has existed there with a non-compliant for some time. The drawing in front of you, to the left, the first yellow line is the extent of the current porch. The applicant has asked to encroach further onto the lane, which was received and approved by the council recently. And this development variance permit is essentially to reduce the rear property setback of 3 meters to 0 lot line. At this time, we're seeking to go out to the public notification.
Okay, so recommendation that the development variance permit application number DP 1521 for 937 Ambrose Avenue proceeds to the public notification process. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our bylaws section. We have a recommendation that Council adopts the 2016 to 2019 permissive property tax exemption bylaw number 3381 2015. Moved by Councillor Ranhawa, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Any discussion?
I know that we've trying to look at my files to see where we what we've done before, and I know we had that percentage of what we were going to cover on this. But I was wondering, did the previous last year were parking lots from places of worship covered by this or not?
Mr. Long?
Parking lots.
Parking lots for the permissive tax exemption, were they covered in that tax exemption, or were they paid taxes for those particular parts, right?
They pay taxes for those particular parts that aren't used directly for worship.
Correct. And was that new that we added for last year, or was that's been the way it's been for quite a while?
I think it's been the way it's been for quite a while.
So this new permissive property tax exemption includes parking lots, is that correct? It appeared to me that it was going to, and that's what I was wondering.
I think we discussed that at the first 3 readings.
I think they're talking about only 20%, maybe not giving them before.
Sorry, I typically leave this to Corinne to deal with at that detail level, and I don't have a thorough understanding of the. But as I remember, that this year we decided to go with the whole exemption, and that I believe was the only difference between last year and this year. There wasn't any change in the properties or the way we dealt with properties. It was only with respect to the amount of money. Remember, we decided that it probably wasn't worth the whole issue of trying to figure out what was. I think last time it was, it was 80%, and we were gonna, and so we decided to go ahead and grant the 100% for the exemption. I don't believe we changed any of the properties or anything else in that bylaw from last year's bylaw, other than the amount that we were actually doing.
That's what I had thought in the last, but I didn't file. I have to admit I didn't file this, so I didn't go back and look. But it said each year most applicants would have applied can be categorized in the following groups. This is on page 34. Yep. Religious organizations requesting that their parking lots and grounds be exempt. These organizations have already received a statutory exemption for the footprint occupied by the building they use for worship. So I don't have a problem. I thought it was kind of chintzy last year to do the 80% and down to 50% or however we're going to do it. But also I don't see why we're exempting parking lots. That's all. I don't think we're exempting parking lots for anybody else, and so does that mean that we're now saying that churches don't have to pay for their parking lots? So that's all my question was, right. because the because I had understood the change before, and I'm sorry to be asking this now, but I had understood the change last time was exactly how Mr. Long described it. We're going back to 100% for those exempted. But what it looks to me is that now we're actually going more than 100%, because before it was 100% minus the parking lots. Now it's going to be 100% plus the parking lots. So that's what I was raising.
It seems to read that way anyway. That would be that. But I don't have that exact detail like Ms. Bauman would have at the moment either.
Yeah, I'd have to look. On the face of it, these particular parcel A, and all of these, they look to me like they're just the churches. Not usually there'd be another lot, and that would be my guess. There'd be another lot for the parking lot, but I don't know it at that detail level. I'd have to talk to Ms. Bauman about that.
Sorry. The only reason I wouldn't really care, except as a 4-year bylaw. So we're passing a bylaw that lasts for 4 years, so it should be accurate. That's all. And if I agree that what we were doing with the 80%, 60%, 20%, or whatever whatever the flowing of the, that may not have been a very good idea, although we were trying to do it to save money. But on the other hand, I do believe if we're going to be now exempting more property than previous councils had done, that I don't think if we're going to give 100% exemption that we should be exempting parking lots. That's the only reason that I'm raising this, because my understanding was that we were just getting rid of the percentage decrease in exemption. So I don't know how to deal with this now, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Reinhauer?
Yeah, you asked last meeting question, and she said it's $31,000, another 20%. It's not like whole thing. And I asked about if that will increase our property tax. She said it won't increase our property tax or anything. We should check with her.
Right.
Yeah, given that we've given this bylaw 3 readings already, we will have to go back if we want to change it. I think I can check to find out what exactly this bylaw is doing at on that precise point. And so probably the best thing to do is table the bylaw until we find out as to whether or not you give it final reading, and we'll have to go back and amend it at second reading if we find that council doesn't want to. First off, that the parking lots are actually involved, and then council doesn't want to exempt them.
So we'll move to table. Did you want to move to table to next meeting? Yes, okay, so move to table to next meeting. Any seconders? Okay, seconded by Councillor Moreau. Discussion on that? I'm willing to wait to see what the answer is. So, if there's no other discussion, okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Okay, moving on to item 12A, Housing Committee. So just a quick update. So the city is in the process of examining all their infill lots at the moment. I believe we have, how many infill lots, Mr. Long? 208 infill lots that the city owns, and we did a city bus tour earlier last week, and we went lot to lot to lot to see what potential uses those lots could be for. And part of those examining would be also around housing and affordable housing. And I think the next steps for us as a council is to meet with our community groups that we were meeting with earlier in the summer to reconvene and to see what a project would look like in the community, and go from there. And if you want to add anything, Councillor Thorkelson, to that?
No, I think that we just need to now start figuring out how and where we want to develop and what kind of projects that we want to develop, and try to whip some community enthusiasm into finding some partners that that may be interested in building, and also if we need to find CMHC or BC Housing, that if they'd be willing to come and have a community workshop on how groups could get involved in creating housing, because since the last seniors house was built, BC housing rules have changed, and so have CMHC rules changed, right? There's no CMHC, can't build co-ops anymore because CMHC doesn't subsidize them as they did. BC housing rules have changed. So I think that we need to, but this next meeting, I think that we have to have the council is figuring out what we have, having a look at what we think will go where, and bring that kind of some ideas back to the public for discussion.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Cunningham.
I think we should forget about CMHC, BC Housing, concentrate more on the Nonprofit Housing Association, get some nonprofit organizations, find out what property the city can either donate or lease for $1, and get this off the ground. We've been talking about this for 8 months now, and CMHC, BC Housing, every time we talk to them, we just get promises and nothing else. So I really think the route to go is to get in touch with BC Nonprofit Housing, who is all over the province, has brokered deals with credit unions and everyone else to supply the funding at a low rate. The biggest expenditure is a piece of property. If the city has some property they can lease for $1 a year or something, and especially if it's P1 or P2, then we cannot derive taxes from it. So right off the bat, if you've got social housing, assisted housing, senior housing, they don't have to pay taxes, which is everyone's dream. But in this point, it'll be a reality. And then all you've got is the cost of the housing and maintenance. And you factor that in with another 10%, and bingo. All of a sudden, you've got something coming off the ground instead of chasing after these government agencies like everyone else is and getting nothing. I think we've got to direct our attention a little more to other areas. You know, we've put a lot of time and energy into housing so far, and we're still right. Basically, we've got facts, figures, and everything else, but nothing's off the ground, and I think we've got to start this. Terrace has an excellent model for senior housing. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just find out what these other towns have done, get some consultation with them about it, and away we go. We can get off the ground a lot faster than trying to start from scratch.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that at all, Barry. I'm not suggesting that we go to Macola or to BC Housing and there is no money there to ask for funding, or CMHC. There's no money there from CMHC. It's $30,000. You get up to $30,000 to pay for architects' plans and stuff. But we don't have Terrace does not have a subsidized housing complement where everything in there is subsidized housing. And I looked at they have a cost counter on the BC Nonprofit site that you're talking about. And I put some numbers in, and to see how much it would cost, and to build a 3-story building and charge $300 a month. Well, you can't build a 3-story building and charge $300 a month. I don't care. You can't do it, even if you cram suites in that are basically all bachelor suites. You can't make it build a new building at $3,000 to do that. I used their figures, and which were based on Vancouver figures and not even Prince Rupert building figures, and that was not including the cost of land. It was just the cost of the building that I was looking at, and that's why I think we need to find out what BC Housing and CMHC foresee or are believe that we can move ahead on. You're not going to go, the old model is gone. You're absolutely right. The old model is gone, where you could get subsidies from the provincial government that were guaranteed. And so now what the provincial government is doing, or BC Housing, is subsidizing people. And so to come into your apartment, so they'll give people subsidies to move into your apartment. Well, that's fine, I suppose, if there's enough subsidies in the town. But right now, we only have 60 subsidies in Prince Rupert. That's only 60 rooms that are being subsidized. And so I think that we need some lessons. And if you think BC Nonprofit Housing Association's the best one to give us some lessons on how to do things, I think that's fine with me. I don't really care. All I know is that when I looked at their counter on their site and try to figure out what it would cost to put in a 3-story apartment building with bachelor suites, you could not make it if you were charging what welfare is paying for rent. So that's my concern about how to do it. That's what we need to find out. Now, I'm not an expert, and maybe if we built a building where out of whatever they call it when they use straw and straw blocks now, maybe that would be cheaper, but I don't know if it would be standardized. But I mean, we need to have those discussions. We need to bring in the people to help people in Prince Rupert figure out how to do this. And if we want an outside organization to come in and do it for us, I'm not sure. So, societies are usually run by people who want to do things like the Cane Island Society or the Kiwanis or something like that. They're made up of people who are local, not not outside groups. And so I don't really care. I agree with you. Let's get something going. But what I'm saying is it's not what it used to be. The union has a building. We have we run a senior center, nonprofit senior center in Vancouver, and we are now having to take more and more of those subsidized units out and turn them into for-profit units and charge the Vancouver going rates in order to maintain the building. And because our subsidy is, I think our subsidy is finished in 2 years from now. All the subsidies on nonprofits are going to be gone by the end of 10 years, I think 9 years now, and so we're trying to build at a time that it is more difficult to do that. And quite frankly, I'm not interested in building. I think that, that we've had a couple of proponents who've become before us, developers that have become before us that are interested in building for profit. I'm trying to build something for which is what we would have called subsidized housing, and so how you do that now in this climate is something that I have been struggling with. So that's what I mean. Let's bring somebody here, and if you don't think that BC Housing and CMHC are the right groups to contact, let's contact somebody else. I don't really care.
BC Nonprofit would come in and still use local groups. That's their field of expertise. They use the community groups and find cheap funding. Now, their model I'm not totally familiar with, but it seems to work very well in the Lower Mainland, which has very high property values, and they still get by with it. BC Housing right now is selling their units off. They're giving them to management companies, and in a lot of these non-profit organizations down south, they're putting an extra burden on by selling the land to them too. They're saying, now you own the land, lucky you. Well, now you've got a lot of others to worry about besides just the building. And in some cases, they're selling land back to people that sold it to them in the first place. But all I'm saying is the more people we get involved in this, and the more models we can look at, the better chance we have of getting it done. Like whether it's CMHC, BC Housing, or all of them around the table together helping us, we got to do something. We're just sitting here spinning our wheels, and the tires are going to wear out and go flat pretty soon.
I think we all agree to that for sure. Okay, so that's obviously where we're at the moment. But we'll move on to any reports or questions or inquiries from members of council. Councilor Cook. Well, you guys are going to look at me strangely again, but that's my life, I guess. I think that what I want to let you know, Your Worship, I don't know if you are aware of it, but I imagine you are. Anybody who's moved in the last 4 years has to re-register for the election. And it doesn't matter whether you vote Liberal, Conservative, or Green, or Rod Taylor's group, or Christian Heritage. Doesn't matter what you do, you have to register. And if we don't have people register in our community, then they won't be able to vote on election day without a lot of hassle that people probably aren't going to be willing to put up with. So if you have moved, even if you voted in the last federal election, okay, if you have moved within the last 4 years since the last federal election, you have to go and do a change of address. And it's easy enough on the website, but if you're going to do it on the website, you need a BC driver's license. So, and I don't know, is likely a BC driver's license with a new address. I'm not quite sure, but you need to have a BC driver's license. If you actually go down to in Prince Rupert, it's look, I'm fiddling with papers because I actually had the address, but it's right across from Hecate Straits. It's 22 something on First, right across from Hecate Straits. It's where where Elections Canada is. You can change your address at Elections Canada, or at the Fisherman's Hall we have a computer set up. It's owned by the Unemployed Action Centre, and it is theirs. People can do it themselves. We have paper at the Union Hall where you can come down, and if you don't want to do it by computer, you can fill out the paper and we'll help you do it.
and we'll send you down to with your ID down, the ID that you need down to Elections Canada. But if people don't have themselves registered, so if you were underage in the last federal election, or you didn't register, or you've moved, you have to register, and you have to have your driver's license or your provincial or territorial ID card, or any other government card with your photo, name, and current address, or 2 pieces of ID. Both pieces must have your name, and one must also have your address. So really the end result of it is that you need something with your address on it, and hopefully something with your photo on it, and pieces with your name. I'm just going to not read them all off, but you can have your health card, your birth certificate, your citizenship card, your social insurance number, status card. You can have a old age security card, your hospital card, a label on a prescription. A label on a prescription container, it says. So that has your name on it, I guess. Your library card, yay for the library. Your firearms license, or hunting, fishing, or trapping. So those are all pieces with your name, and pieces with your name and address. Could be a mortgage contract or statement, income tax, assessment, and these have your name and address on it. A letter of confirmation of residence from a First Nations band or reserve or an Inuit local authority, and a letter, or, and this is important for people who are homeless that don't have homes, you can have a letter of confirmation of residence, letter of stay, admission form, or statement of benefit from one of the following designated establishments. And one of them is a soup kitchen. So Captain Shields is signing for people who go to the soup kitchen. He is signing declarations saying that they are attending the soup kitchen. So homeless people who don't have a regular address, who are using the soup kitchen, or somebody using the shelter, the Salvation Army shelter, Captain Shields can sign something. So if you have a pension plan statement, a personal check, credit card statement, credit union statement, bank statement, or a utility bill with your name and address, your new address, plus a piece with your address, with your name on it. So one piece with an address with your new address, and a piece with your just with your name is what is needed. So I just want to make sure that what my motion was going to be is maybe for the next 2 weeks we could put something on the city website urging everybody to vote in the federal election, and just stating that, not all of this information, but just saying, you know, go down and register, contact Elections Canada so we can get it registered. So after that long story, an advertisement for Elections Canada, they should probably pay me, right? What I do is make that a motion that we put on our website to be taken off after the election day. That this is how you register, where you register, and the fact is that if you've moved, you have a new address in the last 4 years, you need to update your address.
Yep. Okay, move seconded by Councillor Kinney, and I'll also add it to the social media and all that stuff as well. Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Any other reports?
3 quick questions, mostly for staff.
Just microphone.
3 quick things, mostly for staff. I've noticed a lot of new positions, management supervisory. I'd like to know if we're hiring any actual workers under them. Second question is, in February, I believe it was, the Heritage Society came before this council and all resigned en masse. And since then, we haven't put out a call for anyone to step into that society. And I do believe it's with the development going on around here and that, if there is the odd heritage building, it should be looked at. And the third thing is The development permit for the Borden Street boarding house, it seems to be coming up on our radar again that there's being delayed or there's problems with it and that. And some of it's finished and they haven't got occupancy permits, and I'd like staff to report back to City Council and what the problem is, or if there is a problem. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Long?
I think there was only one question: does management actually work? And yes, I assure you that management does work. As part and parcel of the whole program of
Planning for major projects.
planning for major projects. Basically, we're starting with the management staff that have the expertise to work on the issues that we need done. We've also been we hired an assistant planner. Some help with building inspection. So lots of other workers. If you don't believe management are workers. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Councillor Cunningham, I apologize.
We won't get into that. Okay, it's just that I see our crews reacting to emergency things like 3rd and McBride there, late Friday afternoon, having to be pulled off other projects and things like that. And I know they're working, they're doing a phenomenal job. They're down at Seal Cove. They're all over town right now, and we see the results. But I just want to make sure they're going to be getting help too, and not just more people telling them what to do.
Okay, I guess we're going to have this debate, aren't we? Clearly, we're implementing a new approach to how we're doing things down at Public Works, and I think it's going very well. We've got a couple of new positions. We recognize that two management people can't handle 50 people reporting to them, so we're redoing that. But everyone is working. However you define work, everyone is working.
I did not imply that management wasn't working. I was just hoping that managers had more people to manage.
Okay, so the other question you had was about the Heritage Society.
The Heritage Society has to kind of look after. I mean, it's a society, so they have to figure out what to do. We own some of these heritage assets that the society was managing for us. So, I would encourage them to reconsider everyone quitting and reinvigorating the circumstances. But I don't know what the city can do about that per se, since it's an independent society.
Doesn't the city appoint or put an ad in the paper, ask for people to come forth, and they get appointed to that society by the city?
I have to check the bylaws, but that may be part of the process, but it's still its own independent society.
That doesn't mean that we can't help.
Well, if
right?
they've all resigned, there's no society now, and if we're the ones that appoint them, then we've got to put out a call to get them to come forth and volunteer.
I don't believe we appoint on that society. It's its own society, and I think what they said was that they're stepping down and they would like someone in the community to take leadership over this group, and we haven't done that yet. That's all. So, I mean, I think it's easy as calling out for new volunteers who want to help that society. I think they were willing to help mentor some of those new people to take those roles on. And obviously they've been just carrying the ball for a really long time and doing good work for us, obviously. And it's another issue of our town right now, which is the point of us moving into public engagement, which is rebuilding the capacity and getting younger people re-involved in the community, because that's a sign of the time that people are starting to hand over groups and hand over businesses and and there's not people stepping in to where previous generation was civically minded, civically engaged. Not that our generation's not, but it's not as much, right? We don't have those Rotary, we don't, our generation's not as involved with Rotary, we're not as involved with Kinsman Club and all those types of things. There's Elks and Moose and da-da-da, right? And so that's part of the process of getting these types of groups back together, is getting our generation, I guess you could say, back into the fold in a program that they're going to get motivated to want to take on these types of things. Because the people that were in Heritage Society, they're so passionate about that. And it's going to be difficult to find those people that have that type of passion. Anyway, so I think we could just easily do a call out for some volunteers, and then probably call some of the people that left to maybe help with some mentoring and get that going again.
Yeah, well, they need some guidance and they need some leadership, and that group that came in here that day were looking to us to sort of carry the ball, and it's been 10 months and we haven't done anything, so I really think we should look into it and maybe put out an ad for volunteers and see what happens. And the Borden Street thing, I'd like that reported back to me.
Okay.
After shuffling my papers, I found my note. There's only two more things I want to say. Is that the advance poll is from the 9th to the 12th. We need to get people out to vote. Advance poll is from 9 to 12. Elections Canada is 227 First Avenue East. And the 13th is the last day that you can register. So it's getting close now. It's the 5th today. So the 13th is the last day that you can register, or you can register or change your address on election day. And advance polls is from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So that's my further ad. Now there is one other issue. I found Riley's note to me, which wasn't from Riley, but I wrote on it myself. I got an email saying that there was a private security force packing a gun at Tim Hortons, pull their gun out. They're in Tim Hortons with a gun, and I was wondering what our regulations are about that. I don't need to know right at this meeting, but we need to know. I am very concerned if we have private security forces packing guns in town. I hate guns, and I know I probably lost 500 million votes on that, but I hate handguns. And I really don't want to live in a society where we're walking around seeing people packing handguns. So I got 2 emails, probably about the same group of people that were sitting at the table, but who emailed me and said they weren't RCMP officers, they were Securitas or something like that. They're some private security firm, and that is in town. I don't know if who's hired them. I suggest probably the port. But I don't know. Somebody has hired them, and they shouldn't be packing. There's nothing against people can secure their land, but they shouldn't be having their officers run around in our town with packing a gun. That's all, with a gun on their hip. So my concern is maybe that person didn't know that. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they were sick that day and needed to do a quick pit stop at Tim Hortons. I don't know, but. If we don't have a bylaw, we need to introduce a bylaw about that. I am really strong against having a bunch of armed people running around town that are private security guards.
Okay, we'll look into it. I haven't heard that, so okay. All right. Any final, Councillor Renauer?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Lots of people this year, when they file their property tax, they file through internet, online, and they miss the property grant application on time, and now they start getting penalties for that. And many people mention like they pay like 50, 60 years, everything on time, and this year by confusion they missed that because they thought like they already pay in the bank and everything goes through. So they're wondering is there any process to appeal or anything to give them second chance?
Actually, unfortunately not. That is one thing which, other than an act of the provincial legislature, we can do nothing about. We can't forego anything. We're bound not to be able to give any kind of benefits for late payments or otherwise. So
next year when we send property tax, we send the newsletter to. So can we send a reminder? So make sure they, yeah, please.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Ratnalla. All those in favor? Okay, meeting's adjourned.